Mhm.
All right, everyone. Hey, welcome to this week's virtual wine tasting, Tipple's Brews and Wines, with Elizabeth Vaudrey and Jeff Vaudrey, the owners of Tipple's, and your host for the evening. This week, we're going back to France, to the Loir Valley, specifically within Loire, the Chinon region, to drink Domaine de Pallus Messange Chinon Rouge. It's a lot of French. It's just a lot. So this is more specifically, it's Cab Franc. So the grape varietal that they work with there in the Chinon is Cab Franc on the red side, and that's basically almost all that they work with on the red. Regular 90-point ratings. This specific vintage, another 90-point rating from Wine Spectator. An excellent, beautiful version of Chinon. And I think you guys have heard me say this before.
Smells good.
I try to show something a bit quintessential when I go to regions that are not as commonly consumed by wine drinkers. So here we are, something that may be the first time you've had a Chinon, and I wanted something that would really represent the region and yet also be friendly. And this guy is that in a nutshell. It's all about it. So if you have not yet, let's pour some and then begin to talk about this wonderful wine.
Brown.
Yeah. All right. So I would say this does not require a chill, but I always say this: my preferred way to drink red wines in addition to white wines is to make them closer to European serving temperatures. So European serving temperature for red is going to be between 60 and 65 degrees. And so to get that in Florida, a real easy way is you take your red, you put it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes before you're going to drink it. And another trick is if it's a wine that you think may need time to open up, you can pop it open ahead of time, recork it, throw it in the fridge. So now you've got a 30-minute head start on that wine opening up for you.
Even with it recorked?
Even with it recorked. It takes a breath. There's plenty to interact with it there for 30 minutes. Yeah. Beautiful dark color on this guy. Kind of a nice extraction. Really pretty ruby highlights and garnet. Great pairings for Cab Franc. Cab Franc is a really friendly wine to pair with a wide variety of foods.
Should I share the slide?
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull it up. Thank you.
Okay.
So, like I said, friendly, versatile, beef, pork, poultry, even some heartier, like say a creamy sauced version of seafood, and then sausages and all kinds of cheeses, which what doesn't go with cheeses? And we can just say that every week, just assume cheese. All right, good old fromage. But like I say, rich sauces and like rustic sauces go really well with these also. I see, and the flowers on the flowers on the label are there because they're indicative of what they kind of expect to be there. One of the calling cards of Cab Franc is a very floral nose that jumps right out.
Excuse me, 1 moment. Okay.
And you know, to me, I think it lives up to its name. I'm kind of getting a nice combination of roses and bright cherry. Like when we drank Bordeaux, the Bordeaux Red Blend a couple weeks ago, this wine will change while we're drinking it. We're going to drink it. It will start out with more tartness, more acidity, then it will finish, and it will open and evolve. The tannins should inflate and become a little more effective and on your palate. This area is known for expressing its terroir. It's very important to them that you're going to get minerality and earthiness with this wine. So let's see here. I've already covered the region where we are coming. So here we have France and all of its growing regions, which is a whole lot of France. Tonight we're in the Loir Valley. So here we up in the kind of northern part of most of the growing regions, other than we have the Champagne region. So, and then within the valley, we are going to be in the center of it, where this river, where the Loire River splits. This is the region that we're drinking from tonight. And boom. So here we have, this is jumping into looking at the valley itself. Like I said, as long as everyone can see it. This is Chinon, right here where the river splits off there. I'm not sure that came across. I tried to stretch it to make it so you could see it better, and I don't think it held up.
No, I'm
Good. You can see it.
Can you?
It
Okay,
looks
great.
pretty good.
So this whole stretch here is a 600 mile river valley that it consists of three. You end up having this is called the lower, then the middle, and oddly enough, this area over here where it curves and starts going down is called it's called the upper. So the lower is up here, and as you move down, it's called the upper Loire.
Does it?
I think
does
it's
the
upper.
elevation get higher there, or why is it upper?
I am not sure. I honestly, I tried to look it up and I didn't find it.
It's
If somebody
French.
knows,
They just
feel
wanted
free.
to screw with people.
I don't know if it's upriver and downriver, but
Oh, maybe that's what it is. Yeah.
So within Chinon, so we keep zooming in
You
here,
need to stop flipping. So
Sorry.
people are going to get sick.
here. Well, I'm not spinning a camera. So within Chinon, we are right here. We go, Pallus, right there. So, so between the rivers, where we have Chinon, this is the central climate. Let me jump back here. This part here is the warmest area, where we have the ocean cooling it here. And then this is the warmest area. And then this does begin to elevate, and you have the mountainous region. So the warmest part is in the middle. This is the most moderate. This is the moderate area, moderate temperature, moderate moisture, and moderate hilliness, where it's just kind of a nice rolling hills, which we will see as we go forward in there. Oh, by the way, something interesting I think about Cab Franc. This guy, we'll jump back out. Is I don't know if any of you noticed the password that I gave for tonight was called Franc Daddy.
Yeah.
So, does anyone have a guess as to why I called it that way? I named that?
Yep.
All right, Brenda's on it. She already knows, I can tell.
Yeah, I know.
So Cab Franc is one of the parent grapes for both Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So these grapes that we drink all the time, Cab Franc combined with Cabernet Sauvignon. Combined with
The front.
Isn't it Sauvignon Blanc?
Sauv Blanc, thank you.
Yeah. White
I
wine.
thought in my head, and it's like, so Cab Franc
So not bad at all.
made Cabernet Sauvignon. And then Cab Franc with this really rare grape, Magdalene Noir de Charentes. Anyway, that made Merlot. So
I didn't know that.
they just found it, actually, Brenda. They just found the counterpart to Cab Franc, because it was really a mystery until fairly recently. And there's almost none left. It's nearly extinct.
Wow.
And let's jump back to the Loire region there.
Hey, Jeff, the reasons for the river being upper and lower is because it flows towards the water, and the upper end of a river is where it starts.
Okay.
Oh,
so that
thanks,
is what
Jerry.
it is,
Well, there we
yeah.
go.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's flowing from the mountains over to the coast, which makes sense.
When it's flowing.
Right. All right. So let's jump forward to the next one. So I mentioned 600 miles. Next one. So we're going here. Lots of limestone, moderate climate. So it's actually a really, really beautiful area to visit. And
chateaus.
one of those areas where when you read it on the surface, a lot of what we talk about is the struggle for grapevines in order to make them really produce better grapes. And in this case, that struggle comes from the soil itself, which is this very limestoney soil with just a bit of clay on top.
So
And this,
not the environment this time, it's the soil,
right. This time the soil is what really brings it all
rather
together.
than the climate.
Right. So, like I say, moderate in all things, beautiful. And this is the river, not the ocean over there. And you can see it's, as we go here, so you can see the limestone right there. As soon as you dig under there a little bit, you're getting all limestone. And I don't know if you guys can see this back area. This area, this is all a wall of limestone.
Wow.
There's so much limestone in the area. They build with it. It's just an incredibly important resource for the whole area. And they have the Mont Plaisir lime rock caves.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's very cool.
Right. But it really goes to show as soon as you cut this hill open, it's all limestone.
Our music's on, not off.
There's a cellar carved out of literal whole limestone.
Mhm.
Now, with the moderate climates, though, what are the colors are cooler?
Oh, sure.
There'll be a little bit of both.
Yep. And then here we are. This is the actual Domaine de Pallus. And it's
Made with limestone.
You can tell it's French, though.
oh, sure, right. And then you see it here, and you're like, okay, well, even I was saying, well, there's limestone clearly along the front here.
Sure.
And this is, but when you see it from the side, you can see it even more, right? And then there's, it's on the river there. So let me jump back out. Let's talk about some kind of what we're tasting and what the winemaker notes on these guys talk about floral and spicy characteristics, silky on the feel, nice acidity. What do you guys think on that? What do you think about the fruit versus spice quality on this wine? Do you find it friendly? Do you find it challenging?
My first sip.
Hmm?
Oh, my first sip I genuinely did not like. I was like, nope, I'm out. This is. Yeah, I thought it was really acidic and really kind of metallic. But we've been having it sitting here open now for about 20-ish minutes. We also put one glass through an aerator, and I think I really opened it up a tremendous amount now. And now I totally agree. Rose petal, like rose water and stuff like that.
What is that?
But yeah, maybe like a little bit of spice on the nose, but nothing like overwhelming. It's nice.
So I would like to agree on the timing. We opened our bottle at 5:30, and it seemed very light and didn't have a lot of life to it. But having had the bottle open and shut several times since then, where it's had a chance to breathe a bit, it's gotten it's gotten more robust. It has more taste. Blackberries and smoke to me. My one thing though would be, this is a really young wine. I think 6 months to more in your wine fridge. And then when you take it out and give it breathing time, I think it would have a lot more life to it.
Sure. I think that's a good point, Pat. Actually, one of the points made by when they rated the wine is that here we have a wine that starts out at, what are we at, $23 normally. And this thing, once again, we talked about how a lot of wines have got to get more expensive before you can age them. This wine can age up to the year 2028.
Oh, wow.
And we're talking, well, it's under $25 a bottle. And like Pat was saying, as you let it age, it's going to give you a lot more.
You said that as it ages, it's faster to get to the taste that you want it to taste.
Right.
Like, as it's sitting out and it's changing so much, it won't change so much as it ages.
That's right. Because you'll start out and the acidity will begin to balance out a little bit better and that kind of a thing. And it will more quickly get to what we're beginning to experience now, which is the deeper fruits. And I'm getting much more of Cab Franc is famous for, on the minerality side, tasting like they call it, pencil shavings, or,
Like graphite
in
type.
Napa, they call it graphite.
Mhm.
So, and I'm really getting so much more of that, so much more easily
Mhm.
with now that mine's been open 20 minutes.
So the Cab Franc, is this a good example of what it's supposed to taste like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is. The interesting thing is, it's also this one is considered very classic in expression for the area, but also friendly. So there are other Cab Francs that will really challenge the American palate.
What does it give you more of? What's
More acidity, more
Okay.
herbacity, where you're going to get kind of that bitter snap stem and that kind of a thing. Whereas I think this guy's got a nice. I'm still getting a lot of cranberry with my cherry on here, but the graphite's coming forward, and cedar, and graphite and cedar are famous. Just absolutely classic expressions of Cab Franc. But what I like about that, because we were talking about how it is one of the parent grapes of Cabernet Sauvignon, and when you have Cabernet Sauvignon from California, the well-grown Napas that are balanced out, you get a lot of graphite and cedar. So you can see that it came through. So that is a part of the grape itself. It can be enhanced from where you grow it and the temperatures it's exposed to, but that mineral type expression is coming from the grape itself in this case, not from the ground. Whereas normally I talk about it being expressed because of what the roots are pulling up.
Well, and with all that limestone, I thought for sure it came from the ground.
Right.
All that minerality.
Branch on your shirt.
I did,
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's from the grape
Or
itself.
was bug.
probably.
Yeah, it doesn't seem as robust as other wines we've had, but I definitely get the floral and it's easy to drink, so I think it's good.
Yeah, it's and that's what it is. It's more. It's not meant to be like a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's not the same thing. It's a lighter body, but it's got a wonderful spiciness. It's got its own qualities that are great in food pairings, and I think it's one of those.
Thank you.
The other thing about it is
It is getting different though.
depending on where it's grown. So the Chinon is going to be
It's a little dry in the beginning.
is going to be a lighter version of the expression of this grape. Whereas if you have Cab Franc from South America, which I happen to really enjoy, they go with a much darker, more extracted expression of exactly what Cab Franc can do. And that's bigger berries and much more vanilla and active barrel. So you can play around with this grape and change it around quite a bit. The French prefer in Chinon to let it be itself as much as possible. They interact very little with it. It's native yeast, and they want it to express what is happening in Chinon itself.
So Jeff, can I ask you, when I think of the Loire, I think of white wines.
Mhm.
And so I was surprised to see a Cab Franc coming from there, that region.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe their approach to Cab Franc is because they are so strong with their white wines.
Well, I think that's a very good point, Pat. I think it makes a lot of sense. You're right. They certainly strive for a very high level of acidity, which is going to come from that preference for white grapes, in general. And I think you're right. I think this is an excellent tie over from, a little bit of that high acidity, that lighter body. You have these qualities that are very common with the white varietals rather than red. And I think
Yeah. So do you have a Cab Franc that is from South America, did you say, where you have a great deal more body, more robust?
Yes, absolutely. The Garzon Cab Franc that I have is Uruguayan, and it's delicious.
Okay.
In fact, we had a wine tasting, kind of a battle, about 9 months to a year ago, about a year ago now, where we had exactly this Chinon versus the Uruguayan Cab Franc, and kind of a taste both and see which one you think wore it, who wore it better, kind of thing. And there really was no final tally. It came down to really close, like by a small margin. It was an interesting result because by a small margin, there was like 1 or 2 votes out of 100, chose the South American, but that's to be expected because it's a New World expression, and more American drinkers prefer that New World active oak, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, when it came to follow-up purchases, it was 10-1. The Chinon kept getting repurchased.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I'm surprised.
Yeah. So in the end, I can't really say that there was a winner in there because it
Right.
jumped both ways.
Mhm.
So the winemaker for this is named Bertrand Sourdais. He's the 5th generation owner of Domaine de Pallus, and he did not just he didn't just hang out and wait to inherit the lands. He went out. He was educated at the University of Bordeaux, and his first winemaking position was down in Spain, in the Rioja region, and we had some wine from there. And his claim to fame was in 2004, the wine he made, there was a contest held, and it was judged by the man that the French consider to be their top wine critic. It's just, they've all kind of, it's whether, how much of it, however they figure that out, but he's the guy that's landed on top as having the most respect, Michel Beton. And he was judging this, and he judged the top 35 wines of all possible wines. We're talking about high-end Bordeaux's and Burgundies and everything from Toro and Spain. So of all wines between France and Spain, he judged what were the best that could possibly be out there. And young Bertrand, with his vintages that he'd been working on in Rioja, made the top 35. And they just were shocked. It was from the Ribera del Duero region in Rioja. And so that, he gained a lot of fame from that, and he had a lot of offers, but he chose to go home and take over the family's vineyards and work from there. So that was in 2004. In 2005, he returned home. By 2009, he had changed the entire vineyards to organic and biodynamic.
Oh, wow. Good for him.
And he believes in very little. He believes every vintage should express what actually happened that year. And it's the winemaker's job to bring the best out of what happened that year. So the only thing he'll do, it's all native yeast, no additional irrigation, certainly no pest control and that kind of a thing. And what he'll adjust is if it's a very wet year, then he will adjust how he trims the grapes. And if they have, too many or too few, if it's a very dry year, you're going to, so that's about all he does is drops different grapes or cuts different amounts of cover leaves in order to get access to the sunlight on the grapes. But he's really, his whole point is he puts all his work into the soil and then lets the grapes do what they will.
So next year's bottle could be very different from, okay.
So what does that mean? Okay, organic, I got, but the biodynamic, what does that mean?
Biodynamique, yes.
Me.
Yeah. So in that one, it's all about not depleting the soil. That's the biggest thing. It's the fastest, like I've read a lot of different descriptions, but honestly, I think the fastest, easiest way to describe it is they don't deplete the soil. So they work with, tilling the leaves back in and that kind of a thing. They work with ground cover that can be tilled back into the soil, but not give it too much nutrition. So that
So there's still struggle.
Right, there's still struggle. And they want to make sure that they never change the character of what's being expressed through the grape.
Thank you.
You are quite welcome. All right, let's jump back over because now that we've talked a little more in depth of all the way from the region through the winemaker, talk about
The rating.
the ratings. It's that time. Okay, wine scores explained. So here we are at 90-point, consistent 90-point wine, which would be considered outstanding at the entry point of an outstanding wine.
And this is compared with the standard for
Me, it would be
the Cab Franc.
84.
It's kind of like a dog show. You're comparing it against a standard, right?
Yes.
Like, no.
Yes and no.
Okay.
It is generally done with, I think, most wine, most of the wine rating companies and individuals, that they are doing it more like a dog show. They're competing, they are comparing it to other Cab Franc. But there's an aspect to just overall quality of the wine. that it's actually more of a, well, it's kind of like the end, because the dog shows start with the individual, where it's that dog being rated against only that breed, and then you finish with best of show. There's an aspect of both in there.
Oh, so
there's
they're
an
comparing it against other wines that are being rated at the same time. Okay.
Yeah, they are.
Not against here's what the ideal is supposed to taste like.
Oh, okay.
It comes with, and I've read a couple of in-depth interviews with some of these guys, and it really is, it's a mixture of a little of all of it, because it comes all the way down to this versus Cab Franc, but it also comes down to this Cab Franc versus Cab Franc from Chinon specifically. And then it comes also to just, is this a quality red wine? Will it age well? Or is it meeting the purpose it's meant for? Because you'll get 90-point ratings with some very easy drinkers that are not meant to age from California, but they reach 90 points because they very much meet a good high quality for what their purpose is. So because of that, and like we talk about, because you have to take the ratings with a grain of salt, it is because all of that is taken into account. Which one is most important to that guy on that day, or that woman? And that's why people will also gain favorites of, they'll follow, do you prefer Wilfred Wong versus, James Suckling and that kind of a thing, because it depends on, in the end,
raters.
Yeah, because do they agree with you? Do they tend to hold dear the same attributes in wine that you do?
Okay.
So because of that, these, like I always say, take wine ratings with a grain of salt, and also don't take them too much to heart, because you can love a wine that either has never been rated or has received, say, an 84 point that year. But if you love that wine, there's nothing wrong with drinking 82 points. That's a good, solid, well-made wine, as we can see right here. And a lot of people think, oh, well, if it's below 90, it's garbage. And that is absolutely not the case. And that's the main thing I like to point out every single week. Just because it's below 90 points does not mean that you're dealing with a garbage wine. And then, here we go. I got rid of my example because I've been going over it so many weeks.
We have new people here, though.
Oh, I know. Well, I have an example which we can always throw back on. I think it's just, actually, we could probably scroll down to it.
Oh, North
I
Africa.
just moved it down.
Interesting.
But we have a wine that was brought to me that had a 94-point rating, and it had an 85-point rating, which was a huge. Most ratings are really
Big
close,
deviation.
and they're not.
You say it every week.
Because I'm not talking about this yet.
And you still haven't ordered it, right, Jeff?
What's that?
You still haven't ordered it,
I
right?
have not ordered it. No.
It's the Brian special.
I'm gonna get you one.
I want one.
Yeah, but so Wine Rep brought me a wine that was 94-point rated and 85-point rated, which most wines are within a cluster of 2 points. So this was very unusual, and that was, to me, I like to bring it up because it goes to show you, I don't know which one of those guys was having a good day or a bad day, because one of them described it as an incredible, beautiful first, offering from this winery, and the other one described it as having the flavor of almost flavorless Kool-Aid and chicken fat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is rare, but ratings can really veer off from each other. So the whole point of all of this is trust your own palate. Just taste through and see what you like, and never avoid a wine just because of a rating that you do or don't see, if it seems like something you would enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
If you like it, you like it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You want me to share
Yes,
the
please.
latitudes?
Yep. Changes in latitudes, changes in attitudes as we
There you
go
go.
through the wine. All right. So here we are this week. We're up here. Can I move this thing?
Yes. Hold on.
Okay.
We'll just make it small. There
Thank
go.
you. All right. So here we are. I always just find it fascinating that here we are, and we run across, and we're literally north of the United States, pretty much, with where this is growing. I mean, you're up there.
Maybe
You
the
got to
tip
get to
of Maine,
Canada.
but that's pretty much Canada.
Yeah, and I do honestly believe they are developing better and better wines all through upstate New York and southern Canada here, and then over here, there have got to be some great wines coming in from those regions, especially as
Jeff. Right before I opened this wine, I was drinking an older, more expensive Cab Franc from the state of Washington.
Oh, nice.
And And to my mind, it tasted like this wine will taste in 2 years.
Oh,
Oh yeah, excellent. Well, and it had those extra years, right, Pat? Because you said it was a little older.
Yes.
Mhm.
And also it sat in my wine fridge for close to a year. And I think resting a wine is really, really important.
Yes.
with most like with
Yeah.
wines that can
With
do
wines that
that.
can age, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also can be very, very difficult not to dig in.
Not to drink it.
No, you just fill up your wine fridge and you use a little patience. And when you run out of patience, you go to Jeff's and you grab something quickly.
That's a good point, Pat.
Plus, Pat, it depends who you live with. When you live with adult children that live with you, they kind of go through your wine stores sometimes.
That's true. Adult children can drink it dry very quickly.
Yes.
We'll hide the good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
We have actually labeled some things that were like, don't touch these. Don't touch these.
Oh, I do. Yes, absolutely.
Jeff, how do you know which wines can age well?
So that is a great question. It's a combination of factors. So within wines, things that help them age well are alcohol content, which can be higher, and which is actually, this goes over to beer as well. So higher alcohol content does allow a wine to age more, but that's not as important as acidity. So like this guy has, we talked about the high acidity levels where you have a $23 bottle of wine as the normal price that can age all the way till what, 13 years from now, 2028.
2028 is 13 years
No,
away?
wait. Is it
8
8 years away? Oh, shoot. I don't want to.
That's why he doesn't teach math. See?
All right, so 2028. So 10 years in bottle on this guy, but 10 years in bottle on a 20-something. Most of the time, I would say, if you run over and you pick up some of my my red blends, like the Ghost Runner. There's a good one. Julie loves Ghost Runner. It's a great, delicious wine. Do not age that wine. It is not ageable. It doesn't have the acidity. It is ready to drink now. They use
for impatient people.
Yeah. They use young, aggressive oak. It has a lot of that oak effect in there, and it will fall out and go flat within a couple of years. So it comes from having. It usually needs a little bit of a cooler growth. Something like it's harder to get them, say, from inland California, where those warmer growth cabs, that kind of a thing, because they have too many sugars that are in there and they're just too volatile and they're going to change a lot in the bottle. Part of it is just tasting through and kind of getting a feel for it. But I will say a combination of acidity, high tannin, and and to some extent, not only, but alcohol can play a factor. I got to pull back on that because acidity is so important. When you go to, say, Rieslings, which age very well, Rieslings are lower alcohol, but they have such high acidity that they can age well, and they're whites. So it's not always only reds that can age.
I think the big thing is you ask an expert, can this age? I mean, really.
Yeah, it's the easiest thing, and you can find it online too, but.
Yeah. You can't tell, like, it plays between so many different factors that there's no one thing that a layperson can go, this can age.
Right.
Like if they marked the bottles in some way that showed, okay, this is an ageable wine, or this is a wine that you want to drink immediately, that would be very nice to the just regular consumer that's out there going, I don't know what tells me. And really you need a person that you can trust or reliable source that you can go to.
Right. But yeah, or it takes a little work. And you know, it's funny, there's almost a regional aspect to it too. For example, we've as a group had 2 French wines now that both were age worthy. This guy will do 10 years and he's under 25. The Bordeaux Rouge that we had was under 30, and that one could age for a good 10 to 15 years. So the Frenchies tend to make more age-worthy wines. Whereas if I can't even think off the top of my head of a single Californian wine under $30 that could really age. You know, I mean, 5 years, sure. I mean, that's, you know, they can age 5, but when you're talking about 10, 15, where you really want to kind of get some effect on there, the Californians don't tend to make it that way. Now, when you get into the $50 range, there's plenty of Californians that can age, but it tends to be a bit of regional style factors into it. Well, because like everyone loved the Iguigal, the Southern Rhone Rouge. That's not made to age so well. I mean, that's, you can do 5, 7 years on that guy, but
Not 10,
not
15.
10, 15. I wouldn't do that. It's not made for it. So it's, I know it's a complex thing. I hope I didn't just talk in circles, but
Do the French tend to value aging more?
Yes.
I think I think it's more of an old world concept.
Okay.
You know, because the French, the Italians are similar. There's a lot of reasonably priced Italian that you can age as well. There's some Italian that you just need to age. I mean, you do not want to drink a young Barolo. Oh my gosh, no. It will tear the enamel off your teeth.
Jeez.
And the whole time you'll just be thinking, this will be so good in 15 years.
Yeah, I actually had bought some white port from Spain. And I wondered about that because I still have it I still have it and I have several bottles of it. So I wondered about that. I might bring it in and have you kind of help me with that if that's okay.
Absolutely. I'm happy to look at it. And in that case, because they're fortified wines, the high alcohol does help port age much better. It keeps them warm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you have any 15 to 20-year-old wines at the shop?
I have some 10s. Well, other than ports. I mean, I do have some old ports.
Right.
I don't think any of the others are older than that. I think some of the oldest ones I have are 11 years right now.
Well, that's still pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a really exquisite 11-year-old Sonoma Cabernet Sauvignon that is, it's so good. And I've actually kind of cornered the market on it because it was with a distributor and nobody knew what they had. And it's ready to drink now, and it is delicious.
That's the Creo.
That's the Creo. I've talked about it before.
Yeah.
Spell it. What's the name of it?
It's called Creo, Creo.
It's so good.
It's so good.
So normally it's normally like an $80 bottle of wine, but the distributor doesn't know what they have. So I've been buying it cheaper. So I'm selling it for $50.
Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
good.
it's a beautiful wine.
It is.
But it's made by this artisanal winemaker named Arnaud Roberts. But he was in collaboration with a friend of his, and the wine was produced and presented under the name of his friend. So people didn't snatch it up. And so much the better for us because we've been getting it all at Tipple's. We'll jump to the last slide, and then we'll talk about next week's wine, and then we can stop recording in a few minutes and just talk. All right, so next week, I love Australian wine names. So next week, we're drinking a great red blend called Tate the Ballbuster Red Blend. From the Barossa Valley in Australia. So by the way, this wine has gotten 90 points or more for 15 consecutive years. Talk about consistency. It's a big, dark, rich, wonderful wine. It is Syrah with Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon. So you've got Syrah, well, Shiraz, as you would say, and down under. So they've got Shiraz, Merlot, and Cab. And you know what I think I'm going to do? I don't normally do like 2 weeks out, but I found that they've got another wine. Like I've had this one a bunch of times. It's fantastic. So this is the Shiraz blended with Bordeaux varietals. So Merlot and Cab. They have another one with Southern Rhone varietals, which is more traditional with Shiraz, which is Syrah. So they have a Shiraz Grenache Mourvedre as well. So I thought it might be fun. Maybe we'll do these back to back and see which one we prefer, whether it's with the Bordeaux varietals or the Rhone varietals.
Yeah.
All of these wonderful French varietals grown in Australia. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to going through the Ballbuster with you guys next week. I hope you'll join me, and I hope you had fun tonight. So let's
Do we have any
Any last questions, and we'll do a final toast before we stop?
questions or comments or anything?
Jeff, what makes it so dark, but then not taste heavy?
Okay, so
That's a good question.
that's a good question. So it's the skins on these guys. So the skins on these guys are just intense. They have wonderful, intense color. And he actually, this winemaker gives extended skin contact when they put when they do the initial crush. They do leave it on. They leave the juice with the skins longer than most people, and that's where that color is coming from.
Okay. We were like, it looks so dark, you would think it'd be so heavy.
Oh, right.
And then it's
So,
not. So.
yeah, so this grape will give you a lot of color and a lot of interesting flavors, but they're not those, like, you know, if this was Cabernet Sauvignon, you would have, it'd be full of tannins and all these other things. So there's only so much that's part of this grape, but the color, obviously,
I
it
like
can
that
make
one
some
better.
color.
It doesn't have as much.
It's so pretty.
Point out this too.
Oh,
So we capped this cork this week.
because we were talking about cork issues a
Right,
week
cork
ago.
issues a week ago. So we opened a wine earlier this week, and hold on, if you can see that line of red there. Okay,
Yeah.
so you want to explain?
So we talked about cork issues and why people might go. For example, we just looked at the Tate the Ball Buster for next week as a Stelvin enclosure, fancy screw
Okay,
top.
right, screw top still.
Right. You want to sound say Stelvin enclosure. So anyway, we talked about possible problems with corking. Corking, which is sometimes the cork will have bacteria in it if the cork maker didn't do their job completely, and it will infect the wine.
Yes.
And other options, other things are physical failure. And in this case, what we have here is this is physical failure, where you can see this was the outside.
The wax did its job.
The wax. Now, this wine was still drinkable because it had a wax topper that kept it in. But when I picked it up, I realized it was sticky. So there are a lot of good reasons, and just to follow up, to not use natural cork. And synthetics work great, and Stelvin enclosures work great.
Right. Yep. So we kept that to share with you guys. And I said to Jeff, "Is it still good?"
Yes, you did. Don't worry, the wax saved it. So,
any other questions or
any
comments?
other thoughts?
This wine would have been really nice with trout.
Yeah, there's that seafood option that you're talking about.
Because the trout's strong enough and this is light enough, the two of them, I think, would have gone nicely together.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Especially you do like something in like a nice, they've got like a red sauce or something, or even a cream sauce on top. That's flexible use of these. And some people talk about drinking. They're really, really red wine preference drinkers, and they want to drink a red with what would be a traditional white wine meal.
Right.
Cab Franc's a great option for that. Well, go to French Cab Franc. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Right.
We'll
Not
drink a
the
South
South
American,
American.
and that's not going to be the same thing.
Okay.
But
So this would be my go-to with seafood, since I always prefer it.
or poultry would be great with like roast turkey,
Right.
duck.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you want an alternative to Pinot Noir, once in a while, you go with the French Cab Franc, and that's its purpose. That's where it fits. It's not gonna take over for your steaks. It's not meant for that. It's a different thing.
It's a giant crystal.
Yeah, I think it got a lot better as it went on. I like it a lot now, and like an hour ago, I was like.
Yeah, now that we've had, because I've opened this up about 20 minutes before we started, so it's been open a good 40 minutes now. So maybe longer. So I'm getting like I've got the graphite is still there with the graphite later, but it's instead of just only like cranberry bright cherry, now I'm getting ripe cherry and raspberry and graphite, and this is that evolution which just makes me happy.
Well, I think the thing is when you pour it, like Julie said, the color is so deep that you expect it to be a bigger wine than it is. So then when you take a taste and it is lighter and less.
It is.
It has a smaller body to it. That if you're expecting that full body and if you're wanting that full body, then it could be a little disappointing if you're not expecting it to be what it's meant to be, which is a lighter wine.
Right. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, like I said, I would put this guy, obviously it's lighter than Pinot, I mean, it's darker than Pinot Noir, heavier than Pinot Noir, heavier than Gamay, but it's on that lighter red spectrum. And yeah, you're right. It doesn't look it. So
right. So you pour it and you think, oh, this is going to be big.
And I think that was part of like when we had the whole comparison of who wore, who wore best. I think the South American, New World or even Washingtonian. Well, I will say I agree with Pat. Washingtonian's more like this. But people that wanted, they were expecting that heavy hitter because it almost looks like it could be a Zinfandel with how dark it is. And it's nothing like a Zinfandel.
I'm close.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that it has that color, but it's very, very, very light. That it could pair with seafood. So that's the interest that I get out of it. We've come to the conclusion that the second bottle tastes better than the first, but I feel the third bottle would taste better than the first two.
I think even better. Yeah.
Keep going. But you're right. Like, you go with like big fishes. If you're going with swordfish or salmon, I'd be all over it with this. It'd be fantastic. All right, everybody. We will keep talking, but we're going to stop recording. So let's have a toast real quick. Thank you all for joining us.
All right.
Launcha.
Hey,